Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a science fiction film, The Butterfly Effect. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. Evan Treborn has a history of suffering from blackouts, which causes him to have gaps in his memories. As a result, he cannot remember or recollect these lost memories. The movie begins when Evan is just 7 years old. Evan is taken to school by his mother, Andrea. After dropping Evan off at school, Andrea gets stopped by the teacher, who informs her of something that Evan had done during one of their activities. In the classroom, the teacher shows what Evan did, a violent painting portraying a man holding a bloodied knife while standing atop two dead bodies. The teacher then tells Andrea that when she asked Evan about the artwork, Evan replied that he doesn't remember ever creating such a horrible painting. Out of concern for her son, Andrea brings him to a psychiatrist. During a neurological evaluation, Evan's mother asks the doctor about her concern. Evan's father also suffers from blackout episodes, and she is concerned whether this condition gets passed to her son. The doctor advises her that Evan should have a journal where he can write all of his activities. The doctor also informs her that the test results will come after a few days. Afterward, Evan writes in his journal about how his mother will take her to Kaylee and Tommy's house to play and meet with their dad. Andrea, who is about to leave, is surprised when she sees Evan holding a knife in the kitchen. It is one of Evan's blackout episodes, as Evan doesn't remember why he is holding the knife. Evan's mother hugs her, with both of them visibly confused about what happened. Andrea then drops Evan off at Kaylee and Tommy's house. Evan gets welcomed by his friend's father, Mr. Miller. After Andrea has left, Mr. Miller informs the children that he is making a movie where Evan is the star. Mr. Miller then asks Evan to keep this a secret. Evan agrees. After this, Evan yet again suffers from another blackout episode. In the basement, he regains consciousness in the middle of their movie making, where Evan discovers that both he and Kaylee are naked in front of a camera. Not remembering the details before the basement, Evan asks Mr. Miller why they are naked. Mr. Miller angrily replies that Evan should do what he tells him. Evan asks Kaylee about what happened, but Kaylee remains silent. On the stairs behind them, Tommy angrily twists the neck of a doll while looking at them. Andrea returns to the doctor to see Evan's test results. The doctor tells her that there is no damage to Evan's brain and that stress might have caused the blackouts. Additionally, the doctor suggests that this stress might be related to Evan having difficulty coping with his father's absence. Andrea ponders about this. Eventually, she agrees. Andrea drives Evan to where his father is currently detained. While inside the car, Evan writes in his journal that he is about to meet his father. Evan meets his father, Jason, who is currently handcuffed. At first, Jason tells Evan that he should not worry because he will not hurt him. Evan talks to his father about their similarity, but Evan's blackout episode abruptly cuts this. The next thing he remembers is that Jason is choking him to death. Luckily, the guards remove Jason from his son, but Jason remains persistent in killing his son. A guard finally suppressed Jason, who hit him hard with a blunt object in the head. However, Jason gets killed in the process. 6 years after this, Evan and his friends, Kaylee, Tommy, and their new friend Lenny are now in their teens. They are smoking in the basement of Kaylee and Tommy's house. Bored out of their minds, Tommy is incessantly looking for something to ease their boredom. After searching hard, Tommy finally finds a dynamite stick that his father owns. He excitedly tells them to blow something up. The gang targets a mailbox that looks like a miniature house. Tommy pushes Lenny to light the dynamite stick, but Lenny is hesitant because of its short fuse. Evan fixes this by attaching a lit cigarette at the end of the fuse. Lenny manages to place the dynamite inside of the mailbox. As they are waiting for an explosion, Evan puts both of his hands on Kaylee's ears to protect her. But it is here that Evan suffers again from another blackout. The next thing that Evan remembers is that they are running in a forest while carrying an unresponsive Lenny. Andrea arrives at the scene where they are currently loading Lenny in an ambulance. Andrea approaches her son, who is crying from not remembering what happened. At first, Andrea thinks it is an excuse, but upon seeing her son's genuine confusion and lack of ability to remember, she is finally convinced and sits beside him. While sitting alone in the attic, Evan decides to write about the incident and what he can recall from it. His pen loses ink while he is writing, and so he decides to search for a replacement. While searching, Evan finds a box that belongs to his father. Upon opening it, he sees that it is full of pictures of various objects as well as a death certificate about his grandfather, who seemed to have also suffered from a mental illness. Evan takes part in a hypnosis session conducted by his doctor to unravel information from Evan's recent blackout episode. Evan starts remembering as he first recalls putting both his hands on Kaylee's ears to protect her. Afterward, Evan sees a red car passing by. However, after this, Evan's memory starts to struggle to recollect these memories. Evan begins to shake violently, telling the doctor that he cannot remember anymore. When blood starts pouring from his nose, they immediately stop the session. After this, Andrea drops off Evan, Kaylee, and Tommy in a movie theater. While walking toward their seats, Evan asks them what really happened on the day of the explosion. Tommy angrily shoves him to a wall and then threatens him to stop talking about it. Inside the cinema, the three watch the movie with Tommy seated in front of them. Kaylee is visibly disgusted by the movie and decides to leave in the middle of it. Evan follows her immediately. In the hall of the movie theater, Evan approaches a distraught Kaylee. Evan tries to console Kaylee by telling her that she deserves a better life. Evan then comments that Kaylee doesn't notice her beauty. Kaylee, surprised by this sudden heartfelt comment, gives Evan a free tongue massage. Tommy, who saw their kiss, angrily approaches them but fails because someone tripped him. Tommy rises from the ground and assaults the person that tripped him up before the guards finally take him out. In the Treborn residence, Andrea sees the news about the explosion incident and decides that she and Evan should move out of there. The next day, Evan meets with Kaylee to discuss his mother's plan. After that, they decide to climb to Lenny's room to talk to him. Lenny, who had just returned from the hospital, is constructing model airplanes. Lenny asks them if Tommy is with them, to which Evan replies that Tommy is not there. After that, the three go out together. Later, the gang notices smoke arising from the junkyard. The gang quickly runs after the source of the smoke. There, they find that Tommy has placed Evan's dog inside his sack to burn Evan's dog. They rush toward Tommy. Tommy takes a large piece of wood and tries to hit Evan with it, but it hit Kaylee in the face instead. Tommy finally hits Evan in the legs and then beats him up. Tommy attempts again to burn Evan's dog. Evan rushes at him, but this results in another blackout episode. Evan wakes up with a face full of bruises and finds that Tommy was successful in his attempt to burn his dog. After this horrific event, Evan and Andrea are finally leaving the town. Evan sees from the side mirror that Kaylee is running toward the truck. Because there is no more time, Evan instead writes that he will come back for Kaylee on a piece of paper. 7 years after leaving the town, Evan is now a college student that is currently undertaking psychology. Evan decides to celebrate with his roommate Thumper about not having a blackout for 7 consecutive years. That night, Evan and Thumper decide to go inside a bar to drink and play pool. The night ends when a group of frat boys chooses to make fun of Thumper's appearance. Evan gets out of the bar with a date. Back in Evan's dorm room, Evan's date sees his childhood journals underneath the bed. His date asks him to read some of its content, and Evan reluctantly agrees. While reading its contents, the part about Tommy attempting to burn his dog, Evan gets transported back to that particular event. Evan, noticing that he is currently at that exact moment, decides once again to stop Tommy. But ultimately, Evan fails once again to prevent his dog's death. After that, he wakes up beside her date and immediately leaves her to go to Lenny's house. Evan visits Lenny to talk to him about what happened on that day at the junkyard. Lenny tells Evan that he could not cut the rope that ties his dog. He also tells him Tommy's threat toward him, word by word. Evan cannot believe that it actually happened. Back in his dorm room, Evan decides to read his journal once again. This time, Evan chooses the incident of the mailbox explosion. There, he goes back in time at that exact moment. Surprised that he had gone back in time, Evan accidentally drops his lit cigarette to his shirt. Eventually, it burns through his shirt, leaving him with a scar. But aside from this, he also witnesses for the first time what happened during that moment. There, he sees a mother and her baby approaching the mailbox. The dynamite explodes as soon as they open the mailbox, making Evan, Kaylee, and Tommy leave the scene in shock. Lenny is instantly traumatized. Evan wakes up and immediately notices that there is now a scar on his stomach. Later on, Evan goes out to have dinner with his mother. Evan asks Andrea if his father had a way to recall lost memories. Andrea tells him that Jason indeed had a way of recollection, but she stops her story before revealing what it is. After that, the mother and son decide to have their palm read for fun. Upon receiving Evan's hand, the psychic, surprised by what she saw, tells Evan that he doesn't have a soul and doesn't belong there. Andrea is clearly upset and leaves immediately. Outside, Andrea tells Evan that she is upset because Evan is actually her third child. The first and the second child were both stillborn. Andrea tells Evan that she considers him his miracle baby. Evan goes back to his dorm to read more entries in his journals. The part he chooses to read is his visit to Mr. Miller's house, but he is immediately stopped by Thumper from reading, stating that the possible reason why he cannot remember these things is that his mind represses them. Evan stops reading, deciding instead to go to where Kaylee is currently working. Evan goes to a diner and sees Kaylee, who looks miserable from her job. After her shift is over, Evan approaches Kaylee and catches up with her. It soon becomes awkward when Evan asks her if she can still remember her father's movie making. It triggers Kaylee, who immediately leaves Evan in distress. Evan later learns through a voice message from the angered Tommy that Kaylee killed herself. Evan decides to go back in time by returning to his reading about his visit to Mr. Miller's house. After going back in time, Evan confronts Mr. Miller to treat Kaylee right, or else it would eventually lead to Kaylee's suicide. Mr. Miller agrees, and Evan returns to the present. Evan discovers that the present has drastically changed. He is now together with Kaylee while being part of a fraternity, but he is not friends with Thumper anymore. Evan decides to have a date with Kaylee, but this gets interrupted when someone informs Evan that his car is ruined. Then Kaylee tells Evan that Tommy just got out of prison, but she assures Evan that Tommy will never hurt him. Evan also learns that Mr. Miller poured out all of his anger to Tommy instead. All Evan could find to defend himself against Tommy is pepper spray instead of hormone spray. While walking in the field, the couple encounters Tommy. After Tommy attacks him, Evan uses his pepper spray to stop Tommy. However, Evan goes to the extreme and beats Tommy to death. As a result, Evan goes to jail. In prison, Evan meets Carlos, his deeply religious cellmate, and asks for his protection, but Carlos refuses. After this, Andrea visits Evan. Evan asks her if she has brought his journals, to which Andrea replies that she was only able to get 2 journals. As Evan goes to his room, the other cellmates violently confront him. They also take his journals, with Evan only recovering some ripped pages. Evan asks Carlos again for help. He convinces Carlos to help him by going back in time through one of the ripped pages from his journals. It was the day when he created the violent drawing. Evan injures his palms so that the scars from his palm will appear like stigmata when he returns. Carlos is finally convinced to help him. Evan goes to the cell of the inmates who took his journals. After tricking them, Carlos comes in and closes the gate. Evan reads his journals and goes back to the time when they were approaching Tommy in the junkyard. Evan gives Lenny a sharp object. They confront Tommy. Evan convinces Tommy to stop what he's doing. However, Lenny stabs Tommy in the back with the sharp object that Evan gave earlier. When Evan returns to the present, he finds that Lenny is now confined inside a mental hospital and Kaylee's life has spiraled down after her brother's death. Evan steals a security key to sneak inside Lenny's room. Evan talks to Lenny about what happened. Lenny asks Evan if he knows what is going to happen, when Evan gives him a sharp object. When Evan says yes, Lenny scornfully tells him that he should be the one that is tied there. Afterward, Evan decides to go back in time to visit his father and ask him what he should do. Jason tells him that he should not play God, but Evan insists on using his abilities, leading to Jason strangling him. After this, Evan decides to search for Kaylee. Evan learns that Kaylee is now living in a motel. Evan invites her to dinner and tells her about his time-traveling ability, but Kaylee doesn't believe him. Evan decides to yet again go back in time on the day of the mailbox explosion. Evan decides to warn the lady approaching the mailbox. Instead, Evan is the one that got exploded. When he returns to the present, he soon finds out that he lost both arms and legs. He also finds out that Lenny and Kaylee became lovers, while Tommy became religious. During a private talk with Kaylee, Evan learns that Kaylee's care for him is the reason why Kaylee and Tommy lived with their dad instead of their mother. Depressed by Kaylee and Lenny's romantic relationship, Evan attempts to drown himself, but Tommy saves him. Afterward, Evan visits his mother in the hospital, who has developed lung cancer. Evan learns that after the explosion, Andrea never stopped smoking. Wanting to make things right, he goes back in time to destroy the dynamite with the help of Lenny. Evan's first attempt fails, so he tries again. He decides to go to the time when they are at Mr. Miller's basement. He threatens Mr. Miller with his dynamite, but it goes wrong when it rolls toward Kaylee instead. When he returns to the present, Evan learns that Kaylee is dead, and that Evan didn't write any journals because he spent his days confined in the mental hospital. The doctor informs him that his demands for his journals are reminiscent of his father's demands for a photo book that didn't exist. When Andrea visits, Evan asks her if she brought the home videos that he used to watch. That night, Evan decides to break in inside the doctor's office. There, Evan watches his mother's pregnancy video. He leaves behind a note and then goes back in time as an unborn fetus. Inside the womb, Evan decides to choke himself. Because of this, Andrea felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She begs the doctors to save him, but it is too late. In his absence, Evan's friends have good lives. Kaylee and Tommy decide to live with their mother, and Lenny leaves his life without any trauma. His mother, Andrea, remarries and finally gives birth to a healthy child. Tommy then becomes a great student. The movie ends with Kaylee's happy marriage. This is Angry Mustache Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your fun for today.